Hi, happy new week and welcome to today's episode. So last week I brought to you 5 creative camera movements. Thank you so much to everybody who checked out that video, and I actually hope the video was very useful. So today I chose to put up 6 basic camera movements every single camera operator, director, actors, props, every single person who is involved in filmmaking or anything media should actually know. So watch to the very end, because at that point I actually give out a powerful tip on how to carry out camera movements. So camera movement number 1 is pan. Pan is actually a static position of the camera but with a horizontal movement. So let's take for example, I keep my phone this way, okay, and then for pan all it does is this. It just turns and turns in one position. It just turns and turn. So you just turn the camera using it to either follow a subject or just reveal a subject. Best used when you're working with a tripod, though you can still achieve it handheld or with a crane or anything. But with a tripod, you can just get it in that same static position. It just does a horizontal movement to the right and a horizontal movement to the left. That is pan. Pan is usually slow. It's not really a fast movement, it's just a slow horizontal movement of the camera from right to left or left to right. Camera movement number 2 is the tilt. Tilt is a vertical movement of the camera still on a static position. The camera is planted in one position and it just looks down and looks up. It looks down and looks up. Okay, so you have this here and then the camera just looks down. That's tilting down and tilting up, because if it's looking up, it's tilting up. If it's looking down, it's tilting down. So the camera does a vertical movement in a static position. It just looks down and looks up. That is a tilt. Basic camera movement number 3 is dolly. I would have mentioned zoom, but zoom is an optical movement, not a camera movement. This is why zoom is a bit unusual to the human eye, because human eyes don't zoom. Okay, zoom pulls a subject closer and pushes it away. You zoom in by pulling a subject closer and zoom out by pushing that same subject away. It is unusual to the human eye. The camera just zooms in and zooms out. It is so not for film. Zoom is actually made for in case of incasities, when you know you're not in control of the situations and you just have to take your shot once and for all. Then you can actually zoom in an unplanned situation and take your shot, but not for film. Film is so well planned that you don't need to zoom. Okay, this is why I refuse to include zoom as one of the camera movement. So you shouldn't apply zoom in film, because film is a deliberate art and is a storytelling process. So applying zoom is so unusual to the human eye. Rather, you use dolly. Dolly is actually a physical movement of the camera towards a subject, away from the subject, or following a subject or object, as the case may be. The camera has to move from one position to another position, either following a subject or coming towards the subject or moving away from the subject. That is dolly. Dolly doesn't necessarily have to be slow, but yes, slow dolly movement makes a whole lot of sense. So the camera just makes a movement either following something or just revealing something, but a slow movement. So it's preferable to use dolly instead of zoom. Instead of pulling the subject close, move the camera to the subject. Or instead of pushing the subject away, move the camera away from the subject. That way you're carrying the entire audience along. You're moving them close into the intimate space of the character or away, abandoning the character. Dolly movements are very emotional and can automatically add a lot of value to your production. So basic camera movement number 4 is the pedestal movement. Camera pedestal movement is a straight up to down movement. The camera does not pan and does not tilt. The camera just stays there and then comes down and goes up. So it could follow a subject from a standing position to a sitting position just by decreasing in height and increasing in height when necessary. Alright guys, if you're learning from this video so far, please just give us a like and back to class. Camera movement number 5 is the crane movement. The crane has the ability to pull through pan, tilt, dolly, and even pedestal. The crane movement is an up to down movement or a down to up movement, but the crane equipment itself has the ability to, even while going up, it can tilt down, or while coming down, it can tilt up. It has a flexible head that can rotate and tilt. A crane can move from a low angle position to a high angle position and tilt as well. It can also pan even while making that movement. So the crane is a very, very huge asset to filmmaking, only that it is very huge and sometimes very difficult to operate. You need a specialist to be able to use a crane. Okay, but manufacturers have actually been able to create smaller sizes of this crane called the Jeep or mini crane. These are small size of like 4 feet arm, 8 feet, 16 feet that can work within an interior location or within any kind of smaller found space, because the crane usually is very large, very big. Sometimes the operators need to be on the crane with the camera while up there operating. So but the mini crane can actually be used by one man within an interior space by just controlling it with buttons. Today the crane has been replaced with drones, because the entire process of transporting a crane, the manpowers involved, the space, the resources, it's only productions with high budget that actually would work with crane. But the drone is more flexible, that one man can just get it up there and get your shot, and it even gives you the flexibility enough that you can go higher than what the crane can cover and come as low as possible, and you can make a lot of more flexible movements with the drone than with the crane. So I think the drone is more of a blessing that has replaced the crane, mostly for independent filmmakers and low budget filmmakers. So if you have a good operator, the drone is far more reliable than the crane. So that's it about the pan, the tilt, the dolly, the crane, and the pedestal. All right, here are the tips I kept you waiting this long for. Camera movement needs plan. You have to plan it out. There is no jumping into it and getting it right, because maybe you don't have the needed gear at that point, or maybe the space, one thing or the other can actually go wrong. So it's always better to plan it out, know where you're moving from and where you're heading to. Also, know why you're moving. Move for a purpose. I mean, like, move for a purpose. Move, have a reason for moving. Plan your movements before executing them. It would help. Use gears. Okay, guys, please. Mostly if you're just starting out, please, guys, do not risk it. Get the gear. Use a Steadicam. Use a Ronin. Use a Crane 3. Use any kind of gear. Use a tripod. Okay, so just get an equipment and get the job done. And finally, which is the biggest to me, always consider lead room. Just like nose room, always consider lead room. If you want to know about what nose room would mean, also check up this video or check in my link later, and then you will see for yourself what nose room actually means. So lead room, which is the direction where the subject is moving to. So you always give space to that area. If the subject is going right, give more space to the right and take off some space from the back so it doesn't have that dead space. Imagine taking a shot and then keeping less space this way and then having more space to the back. It just seems like you're directing the subject backwards when the subject is actually heading forward. So you always have to create space to the direction where the subject is heading to. That area is where you create the space, and that space is called lead room. Always consider lead room. And at this point, I say it's a wrap. Class dismissed. Love you guys. Give it a like and get out there and practice.